we have done the summations with over and under approximation. And to decide if it was over or under, it really mattered if our rectangle was like above or below the curve, right? And we kind of talked about it. It depends on if the function was increasing or decreasing, whether that was the starting or the ending point on your rectangle. Those are sometimes just called left-hand and right-hand sums. So I don't know that I actually put any left-hand, right-hand sum problems on this, but I did on the homework, so I'll talk about that on this one. But we could also do a midpoint. So if you have some curve and you are using rectangles to approximate your area, right? So let's say this is starting at 1, and I'm going to go up by 2/5 for whatever I'm doing. So this one will be at 7/5. If I were doing a left-hand sum, then I would be treating my rectangle where it's starting at the left-hand point between the two. So a left-hand sum would start at 1. Okay. If I were doing a right-hand sum, that's where your rectangle will be based off the rightmost number, which is 7/5. So if I were doing the right-hand sum, it would be, in this case, an over approximation because I'd be starting at 7/5.
Can I get Angela?
Yes.
Round 2. Got him.
I just.
Sayonara, sucker.
Well.
Better get to chugging
Yeah,
water.
got him. You predicted that.
Yeah.
I so predicted that
Where's the
one,
laugh at?
Yeah, why are you?
actually, I just sent an email right there. I told you I was submitting a letter of recommendation. I really
Actually,
emailed
can you
and
please
said,
pull
"Come
someone to
pull."
drug test them?
All right.
Oh,
So left, you would start at 1. A right-hand sum would start at 7/5.
My favorite thing is she's getting drug tested for quiz bowl.
twice now.
If I asked for a midpoint sum, you would start in the middle. What is in the middle of 1 and 7/5?
Probably 3.5 fifths
6
or
fifths?
7 tenths or 6 fifths. Yeah, because yeah. Whoops.
I'll take the easy one and say 6
6
fifths.
fifths.
I was thinking in the middle of 0. Whoops.
3.45 fifths.
I said 3.5 fifths because I was taking the middle.
Half of 7.
Yeah. I thought it was.
Which- You know. Yeah. So, never mind.
No, don't.
So we've talked about over and under. That's really just left and right hand sum, except left and right is a little bit easier. You don't have to think about is this an over or an under approximation. Left hand sums just mean for each rectangle you're using the leftmost x value to approximate the area. Right hand sums you're using the rightmost value to approximate the area. Midpoint sum, you're taking the middle of the two. Which one do you think is the most accurate? The middle, because it will,
Be in the middle.
yeah, you'll have some above and some below. So I want to try one of those. If I want to evaluate the sum, f of x is x cubed minus 6x, taking the sample points to be the midpoints on 0 to 3 with 6 rectangles.
So we do 1.
Alright, so we're looking back, our change in x, 3 minus 0 over 6 is 1/2. And remember when we set those up, we had 6 different things we were adding together, right? Because it was 6 rectangles. Remember we had this on our quiz? And to get our y's, we have to plug them into,
Oh, we can't just do. Got it.
Oh,
yeah, we're not doing the limit of the sum. It gave us
man.
actual 6 rectangles, not n rectangles on this. I know, it seems like we're kind of backtracking, but
Yeah.
that's the order they presented it in, so that's what we're doing. Alright, if you're starting at 0, and you're going up by 1/2. If I were doing a left-hand sum, what would be the first x value I would do? 0, and then it would be 0.51, 1.52, and 2.5, right? If I were doing the right-hand sum, yeah, you'll plug them in to get your y's. If you were doing the right-hand sum, what would be the first x value you would
Oh, so we
one
do
half, and then you
0.25.
put in 1. We want the midpoint, so in the middle, 1/4, or I'll just write it as a decimal, 0.25. So to get, that's the x we're plugging in, but we put it into the equation, so 0.25 cubed minus 6 times 0.25. But how much do I add to get to the next one?
0.5.
Yep, you still add a half, or 0.5.
Oh, we got plugged in this.
So 0.75 cubed minus 6 times 0.75.
Wowza.
What's wrong?
I didn't put that.
Oh,
yeah, there, yeah.
do you guys know how I'm getting these? You're welcome to do decimals if you prefer. So 1.25. 1.75. 2.25. And the last one would be 2.75. Let's see what we get.
This still isn't like an exact answer, it's just
Mhm.
approximation.
Right. It's not the true area because we know we are going to have an under or over approximate.
My biggest fear when I get drug tested is that what if I accidentally get drugs? What?
Do you have a guilty
That's what you would
conscience?
think.
I don't have guilty conscience. I'm just saying. I'm just constantly overthinking.
Did you test positive if
Poppy
been
seeds.
around it?
Yeah.
Poppy seeds.
Poppy seeds.
I
Compared to-
do.
If you eat poppy seeds, you test positive.
It didn't
for
add-
opioids,
You would have to
actually.
have
Didn't
a
be-
significant
Didn't
amount.
Beagle say?
Yeah, you have to have a good amount.
I feel like I know that
but
from Beagle.
it'll test you from positive for poppy or
Well, she
opioids.
probably has that.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, I didn't know that poppy seeds did that because in Ozarks.
Because in the Ozarks I got high on
because you
Poppy
got
Ozarks
like
is,
tested positive.
Oh, gosh, that's
Too
starting
long.
to-
It's- yeah,
I
this
know,
ca-
I had to,
This
it
calculator's
was too many characters.
gonna crash out.
I believe in you guys.
So you're
What'd
not
you guys
getting
get?
it?
Oh, it can't
I-
even put my thing.
I think I got what you got.
What'd you get?
Negative.
I'll wait for you. So, we didn't do left and right, but if we did, this would be in the middle of the left and right
It's
hand
left and
sides.
right, just do the upper and the lower.
Yep.
Okay.
Could you
Alright.
do the left and right and just put them or no?
It won't necessarily, like, you can average them, but that's not necessarily the same thing as the midpoint, so.
Okay.
I feel like if you're in a calculus class, they cannot pull you out to drug test you.
Can we make that rule? We should be exempt. Alright, let's take a look at this one. Practicing evaluating these integrals. So that's kind of like yesterday. So how do I find my change in x? How do we get x sub I?
The lower starting plus
Just do.
your x times I.
Mm-hmm. So you just get 3 over n I.
I was thinking too hard.
So now we need limit as n approaches infinity of the sum from 1 to n f of x sub I. So I am replacing my x's with 3 over n I cubed minus 6 times 3 over n I. Now what?
Or cube or whatever.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Oh yeah, thanks, I left that off. Times my dx, I change in x, 3 over n. Alright, so we need to cube and distribute the 3 over n. So 3 cubed is 27, times another 3 would be 81, n cubed times n is n to the 4th, I cubed. Okay, 6 times 3 is 18, times another 3, 54 over n squared I. Do you guys remember doing this from yesterday? the formulas, what happens to your summation?
Keep those one.
81 over n to the fourth. What's the I cubed formula?
N squared times n plus 1 squared over n over 4.
Minus 54 over n squared times the I formula.
N plus 1.
I can cancel an n squared right here. And n over here. 54 divided by 2 is 27. So, I have 81. If I take n plus 1 squared, that's n squared plus 2n plus 1. For my 4n squared. Now what do I do? So, can I distribute and break these apart as I go? So, 81 n squared over 4n squared.
So that's pretty close.
81 times 2n divided by 4n squared. Be 81 over 2n. 81 over 4n squared. This one distribute negative 27, so negative 27n over n is negative 27 minus 27 over n. And then as n goes to infinity, anything with n on the bottom turns into 0. So we have 81 over 4 minus 27. 27 over 4, negative 6.7.
Whoa, negative. How did you get that?
Use the midpoint rule
Whoa.
with n equal to 5 to approximate this interval. Okay, so remember, when I see this, that means my curve is just 1 over x. The interval I'm looking at is from 1 to 2. We're approximating the area under that. So what do I need to do first?
Change next.
2 minus 1 divided by what?
5.
5, because I did tell you how many rectangles. So that's 1/5. Then we have to think about this. This would start at 1. If I add 1/5, can I just say that would be 1.2? Okay, so if I were doing the left-hand sum, what would be the first x value I use? 1. If I were doing the right-hand sum, what would be the first x value I use? 1.2. If I'm doing the midpoint, what's the first x value? Okay, to get my y's, we have to plug them into the equation. Now, area is length times width. All of these have a width of 1/5 or 0.2. We're adding 5 things together. To get the y's, we are plugging it into the equation 1 over x. So my first one is 1 over 1.1. What's the next x value?
1.3.
Yep.
Okay, never mind, I'm not stupid.
So 1 over 1.3. So we're just going up by 0.2. 1 over 1.5, 1 over 1.7, 1 over 1.9. Alright. Any questions? You guys have a handout from yesterday. I want you to finish that handout. Do tomorrow. We've got quite a bit of time.